Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll talk a lot about the New Orleans Saints, the LSU Tigers, the Tulane Green Wave, and a little bit about the New Orleans Pelicans. We got a great guest list for you tonight. On the panel, Ken Trahan and Lenny Vangilder of CrescentCitySports.com. We're going to tell you all about that new website as well. And gentlemen, welcome to the show. As always, thanks so much for coming down. Looking forward to a great hour. And Kenny, we'll start with you. CrescentCitySports.com. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, the genesis, of course, and thanks for having us, by the way. It started with NewOrleans.com nearly 10 years ago, beginning of 2008, and that morphed into SportsNola.com. And as of August 1st, we're CrescentCitySports.com. We think it's clean, we think it's understandable, we think the logo's outstanding, and it really does identify everything. It's not just New Orleans, it's the New Orleans area, it's the metropolitan area. Every one of the surrounding parishes and everything that's attached to it. With all due respect, everything runs its course. That's simply the way life is. And I've said this for quite some time now, and this isn't an affront to anything or anybody, but the whole NOLA thing's gotten old. Mm-hmm. It's gotten old for me. I'm getting a little bit tired of the references. You got businesses left and right with the name. You've got athletic teams with the name across their jersey. University of New Orleans is New Orleans, it's not NOLA. Pelicans do the same thing, and so forth and so on, aside from the newspaper and our identity and everything else. So I think at some point in time, we would have been changing it anyway.
Sure.
So when the opportunity arose to do that, we saw a great chance to grab a URL that we were shocked that was available, and we did. And Jude Young did a great job of identifying that for us. So here we are today, and we have always strived to be a journalistic website. It's what we do. We don't have message boards. We're not a blog place at all. We're not a rumor monger place. We are a journalistic site. And it's not just the written word. It's the video that we present, and where we really set ourselves apart is the games that we do, the high school games, which nobody else does, in HD, replay, network graphics, and of course our scoreboard on Friday nights, which attracts 30 to 40,000 visitors every Friday night, which is remarkable. It's where everybody comes. So we've championed prep sports, but we have a significant audience, in particular with the Saints and LSU, as you might imagine.
Yes.
Some with regard to the Pelicans and Tulane, and everything else a bit lesser, but we make sure that we cover everything. We take pride in doing so.
Lenny, talk about some of the writers you guys have. Have y'all brought the same crew over? Any differences? Kind of get into that if you would.
It's some of the same, some different. So, but the genesis is Ken mentioned. It's going to be the same things. We know kind of what our wheelhouse is, and while we're going to cover everything, it's really about what's local. The common bond with the group that we have contributing is they're all local people. They're not coming in from out of town. Even if they're not originally from here, they're been here long enough that they are from here. So it's a good group of people who understand what sports in New Orleans is all about, and that real point of difference with us is the high school sports coverage, whether it's the scoreboard on Friday night, whether it's the game broadcast that, over the last 6 years we've had, about 220 games that we've done. We'll have 30 or more webcasts this year that you'll be able to watch, live streams on CrescentCitySports.com. Be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Kenny, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up what you're doing on 990 and, of course, the prep coverage you do there. If you would let the folks know a little bit about it. We're what, less than a month away out from high school sports, right?
Yeah, why did you have to remind me?
Yeah.
It's an incredible undertaking. We're really blessed. We're entering our 23rd year of the original, and it bears my name. I was resistant to that, but when we got into a snafu with my original name elsewhere, we just decided, and my bosses at the time decided, it's about you. We need to put your name out there. So we did. And it's 23 years running. We're on 9 radio stations across the state, many websites, literally hundreds of contributors. And it's a 5-hour show. And a 5-hour show on a Friday night, when it's all happening as you speak, is quite a task to undertake. But we have great people doing it, and that's what makes it worthwhile. Rick Galey and Ro Brown co-host with me, do a great job in that capacity. Jude Young and Emmanuel Peppis marshal our scoreboard and take care of the scores on the air. And then we have another group of people that gather those scores, aside from the 40 or so reporters that we fan out all over the state each and every week. So it's an incredible undertaking, as you might imagine, doing radio yourself to try to coordinate all this. And that's why I said thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not getting younger. So every year it's like, my friend Ed Daniels does a similar thing in television. And every year we look at each other and like, you doing it? Yeah, I'm doing it. Are you crazy? Yeah, I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Let's go. And then you get into it and you'll love it.
Right, labor of love.
It is a labor of love. That's why we do it. Look, I've been blessed my entire career. I say this all the time. I did Saints broadcasts, I did Zephyrs broadcasts, did New Orleans Night, New Orleans Voodoo, Tulane, UNO, everything imaginable. But the one thing I've never stopped doing is high school sports and high school games. Did my first game in 1978, so I guess I'm old. And bottom line is that you do it because of the love of the game. The coaches coach for the love of the game. They surely don't get paid. There has to be counselors, teachers, parents, everything under the sun. Players, same thing. And as Lenny and I talk about frequently, it's the last unadulterated form of sport. It's not big business. College sports is big business. Pro game is the pro game. The high school game, certainly set apart. And this high school show, which has won national awards and everything else and has given us a lot of great recognition, is something we take great joy from, and that's why we still do it.
Well, you set the standard in this state when it comes to prep sports coverage, no doubt about that. Lenny, the Crescent City Sports website, Twitter feed as well. You got a Twitter handle, if you would. Let the folks know a little bit about that.
Yeah, you can, a couple of things you want to follow on Twitter, at CCS Daily, which will have all of our coverage, and then if you're really that prep junkie, and we've got a lot of those out there, follow at CCS Prep. That'll get you everything you need to know that's happening on there, and of course, make it your homepage, CrescentCitySports.com. It's there. It's getting a little bit better every day. We like to think we opened the store with just the front of the store open, and we're continuing to add rooms to the back of it. Every day as we go, it'll be more and better every day you go to it as we build up to the start of football season.
Well, congratulations to you, Kenny, and also Jude Young. You guys
do a great job. Jude does a tremendous job. Now, if we can only get that Asher guy on board and get his agent to drop his demands, we might take it to another level.
We're working on that. We're definitely working on that, no doubt about it. Guys, both you guys were around when Morton Anderson was here in New Orleans, and this week Jim Mora talked about that being one of the biggest mistakes they ever made at his time in the organization. I can remember being on Poland and I think it was right by the Claiborne Bridge at a stoplight on my way home on the day it was reported that Morton Anderson was released for the New Orleans Saints, and my jaw dropped. Okay, I mean, just never thought that Morton Anderson would be kicking elsewhere. And then he goes on to kick for like 10 more years, and of course, so glad that he has an opportunity to be in the Hall of Fame. Kenny, I'll take you first. Your memories of Morton Anderson here in New Orleans.
Well, he's a good friend, first of all, and he invited me personally and had a seat and everything else for me to go to the induction. And unfortunately, I can't make it with the launch of the website and everything we have going on right now, which is disappointing. But my memories of Morton are simple. When he first got here, first play, first game, kicks off, gets hit, gets hurt, and he's out. And he misses like half a season. So it's like, can you believe they drafted a guy in the 4th round to kick, and he's not even on the field? Immediately, the images of Russell Ertzleben were dancing in our minds. The image was still fresh from that, because it wasn't too long before that Ertzleben was part of the Saints. Well, obviously, we saw that they knew what they were doing, because by the next year, he had a leg. It was like thunder when his foot struck the ball. Nobody hit the ball like he did in those days. And, of course, his accuracy improved over in an elongated period of time. And then when you look at his body of work over the period that he kicked, which is longer than anybody else, it's second to none. From the standpoint of what happened with the Saints, look, I was intimate in that situation, and I talked to Morton the day it happened. He was absolutely crestfallen, but he was also mad and befuddled. Saints had a guy named Chet Franklin who was really very influential in personnel decisions, and here's what happened. It's real simple. Jim Finks got sick, and Jim Finks died.
Yes.
And when that happened, the organization was in a state of flux for leadership. You had the three-headed monster of sorts with Billy Kuharich, Jim Mora, Jim Miller was part of that. And of course, Chet Franklin was a guy that was given a lot of power in the personnel department. And he was a guy they tried to turn to be an interim coach, by the way, when the players revolted and said they're not going to do it. And the coaching staff said that's not right, we need a coach, and so forth. And obviously Rick Venturi got it at that time after Mora left. But Franklin made it very clear to Jim Mora, kickers are a dime a dozen. We're not going to pay that much money to a kicker. Now, I don't know what Jim Finks would have done because he was very tight with the Bucks as well, as Bobby Hebert would tell you. But they made the decision that you can replace a kicker. We're not spending money on that, and let him move on. I think 90% of the time that's the right move to make. But when you have the elite of the elite, I don't care what position it is, it's a terrible move.
Yes, no doubt. Lenny, your memories, your thoughts?
I was 16, 17 years old when he first came to the Saints. My family and I had season tickets in the front row of the end zone right next to the goalpost. So I had an interesting vantage point watching him kick. And, I always said this because we were in the end on the side nearest where the arena is now. I always thought the Saints, given the choice, always kicked in that direction to kick off the game. I think they cranked up the air conditioners or whatever in that direction to make the wind blow that way. And inevitably, if the Saints were kicking off, they were going to kick that way, and Morton would kick the ball out of the end zone. A couple balls landed in the stands by us. He had such a strong leg, and you really got that vantage point just to see, those, even the long 50-plus yard field goals, to see where those balls would hit the net, literally right in front of us, was a tremendous vantage point to be able to have. And obviously, he was right there on the edge and was a big part of that first round of success that the Saints had 80s into the early 90s.
Probably when you look at clutch kicker, probably the most clutch kicker in the history of the NFL. And I mean, again, a guy that when he did kick off, rarely was there a return.
And yes, in an era where that really wasn't the in vogue thing.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you expect it. They've changed the rules, and it still doesn't matter. So, yes, he was ahead of his time in that regard. Like I said, when he struck the football, it was a different look and a different sound.
Yes.
He wedged. That was his style. He wasn't a beautiful kicker style-wise. He was a wedger, a guy that just overpowered the football, but then became more and more accurate as time went on.
Guys, let's talk a little bit about the Saints. By the way, congratulations to Morton Anderson going into the Hall of Fame.
Amen.
Let's start with you first. Thoughts on camp thus far? I mean, Sunday night they'll be going over to Yeoman, get a chance for more fans to be able to see the team. It'll be an evening practice. That's always good. They get a nice crowd out there. And just your overall thoughts so far.
Well, you've seen, there have been 7 practices thus far. First 2 weren't in pads, so now you're dealing with, just a handful of practices in pads. So it's hard to really get a snapshot because I think somebody tried to actually get Sean Payton to say it the other day when the offense did not have a good day in a particular 11-on-11 drill. The offense have a bad day or the defense have a good day? What exactly, you could start looking at one player here, one player there, things like that. But as you're looking at this team as a whole, maybe the defense is a little bit better and that's causing the offense, to maybe not do some of the things that we've come to expect, at least in drills. Maybe it's just early on and there's still some inconsistencies. You're still trying to find your way at some positions here. Obviously, you got to find a replacement at center. You've got to find a replacement at left tackle, at least in the short term. Identifying some other spots. Getting the pass rush situation, especially with those edge guys, shored up and determining what your rotation is going to be and who those guys are going to be. So, a lot of those things are out there. Obviously, the thing I want to see first is next Thursday night. And actually taking the field against another team. Oh, I would say another NFL team, but this is the Cleveland Browns we're talking about. So, yeah, you want to see that and at least see them go against another team. We know from Sean Payton's history, they're not going to show anything. You may not even see some of the guys who really matter for very long, especially in week one. And even then, it's become more and more, let's just hold guys back. Was it a year ago? I think Drew Brees played 5 series the whole preseason, 4 series, something like that. So you're not going to see, guys that matter that much. But just to be able to see them go against someone else, especially those new guys, getting a chance to put on that real uniform for the first time and see what happens.
Kenny, what can you add?
I think they're more athletic. I think they have more depth on defense across the board, Nick Fairley notwithstanding. Certainly the secondary is the most improved area of the football team. Marcus Lattimore has to be a big part of that. He's got to get on the field more consistently in camp, which has not been the case thus far. But his track record in college was good. Williams, on the other hand, looks like a playmaker and a guy that's going to make an immediate impact. Raphael Bush was a good pickup to bring him back. Ken Crawley is a lengthy guy who has some ability. Certainly getting Delvin Breaux back, getting P.J. Williams back will help. Damian Swann as well. Suddenly Sterling Moore becomes a luxury, but a guy that gained experience last year. Von Bell is in his second year. Kenny Vaccaro is a proven guy in a contract year. So I think the secondary is by far the most improved position, but they retooled linebacker as well. And A.J. Klein is a leader. He's going to call signals and do the job. Let's see what happens with Anthony, whether or not he becomes a player on the weak side. They like Anzalone a lot. He's a guy that's athletic, smart, has size. And, of course, Craig Robertson and Nate Stupar are solid guys that you can count on. So I think there's depth there as well. And then you get to the down line situation. One of those rookies is going to stick, whether it's Hendrickson or Muhammad, if not both. Somebody's going to have to play a little bit. Onyemata's going to have to step up and play immediately. Rankins will have to play like a number 1 pick. Tyler Davison is a serviceable guy, and Cam Jordan, you move him around and put him wherever you can to get the best matchup. So I think they're better defensively. That, to me, is the takeaway at this point more than anything else, is they've got better players, more depth. They don't have to be great. They just have to be solid, and I think there's an opportunity for that to occur.
They came into the training camp with injury problems. Obviously, Ellerby, when you took a look at Armstead, and of course, with Fairley not being with the team, we know that they're at least planning to release Ellerby after he heals. He's on injury reserve right now. A little concerning this week, though. Delvin Breaux goes out. Lattimore has tweaks his knee, and we have no idea what happened to Colby Fleener, but he hadn't been on the field. This is a team that cannot afford injuries. They don't have the luxury of being maybe as deep as other teams in the NFL right now, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. They don't have depth, but look, in this day and age of free agency, salary cap, you really don't get a chance to establish a lot of depth out there. You don't have the luxury of being able to go, the guys you do get are going to be marginal guys that are going to be backups. If you're good enough, you're not going to be stockpiling starters. There's not a bunch of guys sitting out there on the street. Even a guy like Franklin, who they tried to catch lightning in a bottle with, signing him, they just realized he couldn't go. He was out there one day, wasn't going to be able to practice day 2, and said, okay, maybe when you get a little healthier, maybe we'll take another look at you. But for now, we can't waste a camp body on having you not being able to practice.
Right, and that's a guy that never missed a game in the NFL. I mean, I think it was 89 games that he's been in the NFL, but couldn't handle the heat, and obviously wasn't healed. Kenny, your thoughts on injuries and again, Delvin Breaux's a guy in a contract year. Lattimore had a little bit of a history of injuries at Ohio State, and Colby Fleener's kind of he's always on a contract year. It's kind of a make it or break it year for Fleener as well.
Well, with Fleener, my guy that was there at practice tells me that it was Von Bell delivered a hit.
That's what I understand too.
To the head area.
Yeah.
And so concussion-like symptoms, you make sure, even if it's not. And I think that's good. On the other hand, do you really want guys in your live period taking shots like that? There seems to be a little bit of tete-a-tete between those two, and that's not something you want to have on the field. The last thing you want to do is friendly fire and take out your own guys. Now, inevitably, things happen in football. It's a contact sport. With regard to Lattimore, it's a wait-and-see situation. Too many people were quick to judge and say, oh, the guy's got injury problems, he's going to be a problem. Well, he didn't in his senior year, or his last year of college, I should say. Right. So with that in mind, you shouldn't have to go by what happened prior to that. With a guy like Kakaha, it's different because he did have reconstructive knee surgery before he got here. So that's a yellow flag to me. And, of course, now we know that he's had another, and if it happens again, forget about it.
Right.
So that's a little bit different to me. To invest in a guy that might have had a hamstring problem his second to last year of college isn't a big deal from my perspective. But you got to take a look at it, see what happens. People made a deal about Ramczyk and his hip. That's long gone.
Yeah.
It's not even a factor. And they said that, and they were right about that. And by the way, he's a big key to what they're trying to do. And I think he's well equipped. Wisconsin offensive linemen perform well in the league, and they're well prepared. And it's a good thing the Saints picked him at 32.
Yeah, and a lot of us didn't believe that on draft night. When you looked at the needs on defense, I was one. Again, my thought was, like a lot of people, that he would be the heir apparent to Zach Strief. No one foresaw the Armstead injury. But from what we understand, Lenny, he's been playing very, very well for this team in training camp. It'll be interesting to see how he plays as you get against some of the other teams in preseason.
Well, absolutely. Then again, that goes when you're getting into live situations and you're dealing with other teams. You're right. That's a guy that I definitely will keep an eye on. But what's interesting to me is this, and I think this tells you everything you need to know. Would have been real easy to slide Pete out to left tackle and maybe put him there, at least to stem the tide until Armstead can get back in midseason. You had Khalif Barnes in there. A lot of opportunities where you could have just left this rookie, learned behind Zach Strief. Perhaps he's the guy come next year at right tackle, whatever the case may be. But no, they said, let's put this guy out there at left tackle. Let's see what he can do. And by all indications, the first week of camp, the reviews have been pretty solid.
Yeah, no doubt about it, and really necessary when you look at the offensive line. On the other hand, they've had some problems, especially with the shotgun snap at center. Laribas and Allen. Unger is said to be on the way back, is healing much quicker than they thought he was. They're expecting back for at least the third preseason game. Peyton said in his original press conference that Armstead will be back this year, so you're expecting him to come back at some point. Kenny, your thoughts on the center position right now? Obviously, they need Unger to be there game one, ready to go.
They certainly do. Picking up Laribas was a good move. He's a guy that can play in this league. With all due respect to Allen, I don't see that. But Laribas can. That's good. And Peyton has been steadfast in saying that Unger would be back. He keeps saying it over and over again, preseason, and he consistently says the third week. Now, everything's going well from what we've seen, but then again, they don't tell you much of anything, so you really don't know. Unger is the captain of the offense, and he's a good football player. So to not have him out there, to me, is a bigger loss than Armstead. Keep in mind, Armstead was missing last year quite a bit, and when he did play, he was far less than 100% and not even effective at times. And you start to wonder about him and whether he's a long-term investment because of the injury situations that exist. And if Ramczyk can prove that he can play the position, then Armstead won't be. So if you'd asked me 2 months ago about the strength of the football team, I'd have told you offensive line. Warford's a good football player.
Yeah.
Unger's a good football player. Pete's about to come into his own and be a good football player. Strief had his best year in the league last year. And then Armstead, if healthy, is a solid player.
Yes.
Well, you add Ramczyk to that. I think it's still a better line situation than they've had really since the Super Bowl year, but they need the pieces healthy.
Yeah, no doubt.
And you mentioned the shotgun snaps. Peyton used the word epidemic in his post-game or his post-practice press conference today. And that's concerning. Now, obviously, if Unger's handling that, it's a different situation. That just puts more pressure on him to get back if that's truly going to be an issue. Because there's a lot of things that you can do. If you're that left tackle and, your guy beats you, well, Breeze can just dump the ball off in a hurry or just, throw it at the feet of a running back or something like that. A shotgun snap over Breeze's head, you're talking about a 30-yard loss and possibly a turnover.
Same thing applies, though, to the deep snapper for punts and place kicks because Drescher's not here, and they're trying to find that guy.
Yes.
And there's been good days, bad days by all indications so far there.
Guys, the wide receiver position, there was a lot of question on depth, quality depth on this team after you get past the first three. Brandon Coleman seems to be the star of camp so far. Corey Fuller, a guy they plucked off Detroit's practice squad last year, has been a guy that's played very, very well. The question is now, how many do they keep? And then, of course, how these guys are going to perform when they get in a game. Well, practice is one thing, game is another.
I really don't want to go. I don't want to go to the whole camp thing and use that as a great barometer. Listen, I started covering training camps for the Saints in Vero Beach in 1980. Didn't miss one through 2000, and then made others indiscriminately. I've seen it all, and at a young age, you get bowled over by what you see, and you think it's big time, and then all of a sudden, when the regular season rolls around, these guys aren't even on the team, or if they are, they're bit players. I don't want to say it's the NBA Summer League completely, but it's a rich man's Summer League. Don't get carried away by what you see. And I make that point about Brandon Coleman. Look, I hope he's that guy, but I haven't seen it on a consistent basis. And we heard about him 2 years ago. What a star. And he and Shantavius Jones are going to be. And Nick Toon before that, if you can remember that. Big guys. Boy, they look good getting off the bus, look good in a uniform, but can they play football? So I wouldn't get overly excited about that. Corey Fuller's played in the league. He's got ability. I'm not a big Tommy Lee Lewis guy. They need somebody to step up there. I think Lampman will have a chance to stick as the last guy because of his special teams prowess. But clearly, they need somebody to step into that fourth role. Otherwise, that's why the addition of Kamara was important, because he really does become that fourth guy. He's going to split out and play in the wing, in the slot, and be a guy that's going to create some matchup issues. And it doesn't really matter what your position is that you're designated or where you line up. It matters what your productivity is. Saints used to have that with Sproles. They used to have that with Bush, who were glorified wide receivers. Now they might have that with Kamara.
Lenny, your thoughts?
I agree 100% there. I think you have to, you're going to have four receivers who are typically going to be just receivers. Anything above and beyond that is going to be guys, as Sean Payton likes to refer to, they got to be able to play the core four special teams. Lampman would be, in my mind, the leader in the clubhouse based on what we saw last year to possibly be that fifth guy, unless someone really steps up and can overtake someone out there, whether it's as a gunner on on your punt team, whatever it is that you can do. You've got to bring something to the table on special teams, because again, you can only carry 53 and only 46 of them are going to play on Sunday. So it's it's a very difficult equation to get to. We're sitting here looking at 90 right now. Half that many can dress when you get around to the first Monday night game, the Monday after Labor Day at Minnesota.
You bring up that Monday night game against Minnesota. Adrian Peterson is with this team now. Mark Ingram coming off his best year as a pro. How do these guys coexist?
I think it's easy. First of all, you saw it with Hightower. You've seen it previously with Mike Bell. You've seen it previously with Sproles or Bush, whatever the case may be. I don't think it's an issue at all. I think from the standpoint of carries, I think there are going to be more carries. I think the Saints want to run the football a little bit more.
Would be
and I know that sounds like a sacrilege talking about a Sean Payton offense, but I think they finally get it. I think the addition of Warford was an indication of that. The fact that you have Pete, a big athletic guy, the fact that you have Streif, a big mauler, the fact that you have Ramczyk, who's a big mauler.
Yes.
This is an offensive line that is certainly geared more to running the football. And if Peterson is a guy that has a little juice left to go along with Ingram and Kamara, I think you're going to run the football more, which of course translates into time of possession, keeping your defense off the field and keeping your quarterback upright and not relying on him to have to make 45 to 50 throws a game at the age of 39.
Yeah.
You look at the numbers. The Saints run the football 30 times. The win percentage is off the charts.
Yes.
Yeah. If you can find a way to, there's reasons for that. Obviously, when you're behind, you can't run the ball. But when you're in a close game and you can establish the run for all the reasons Ken just said, not the least of which is helping to extend number 9 a little bit out there. And look, the guy is, while obviously the guy takes incredible care of himself, he's still 38 years old. And you've got to do things to be able to help him. And ideally, he's here beyond this year. And that's one of the ways that you can do it, is through a solid running game. And there are so few single back offenses out there right now where one guy is out there for 3 downs and he is the one that's doing everything. You can count him on one hand, and this is the new normal of the NFL, where you work with 3 running backs and everybody's got their role, if you will. Maybe Ingram and Peterson sharing the carries, Kamara being the 3rd down back. Some variation thereof, but that's what you need these days.
Yep, no doubt about it. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports each and every Thursday night right here with our live broadcast on WLAE-TV. On Friday night, 10 o'clock on WLAE-TV and 9 o'clock on Pelican Sports Television. That is statewide. Our guests tonight, Ken Trahan and Lenny Vangilder of CrescentCitySports.com. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We'll be right back.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Amco Fence, locally owned and operated since 1976. Fully licensed and insured and a member of the BBB, Amco serves both residential and commercial customers. If you're looking to repair, replace, or install a fence for security or aesthetic reasons, Amco Fence supplies wooden, metal, chain link, vinyl, and ornamental or automatic gates. Amco aims to satisfy your fencing needs. Amco Fence, 504-468-9559 or amcofencecompany.com.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guests tonight from Crescent City Sports, a website you've got to check out, Ken Trahan and Lenny Vangilder. Guys, let's shift to LSU, and Maya Tuhuma leaves the program after being suspended. From what we understood was academics. The offensive line all of a sudden is in turmoil because of the lack of depth. They've lost 5 players since last spring. Kenny, I'll start with you first. Obviously, LSU recruits very good players. It looks like Cushenberry's going to be the guy that's going to move in that spot. From what I understand, he had a great high school career, pretty good player. Whether he's ready for SEC play, I guess we'll find out. Your thoughts on the offensive line for LSU?
Well, it's what set them apart from the elite teams the last few years has been their line play and their quarterback play. And maybe their antiquated approach to offense, but you can certainly make the case that they haven't had good enough quarterbacks. And up front, against the best teams, they weren't good enough. You could see the difference, and that takes nothing away from the guys they've had. They're good enough to win against most people and compete. Against the better teams, not. And I think that obviously the loss of all these guys we're talking about over an extended period of time is a real concern. The depth that they have right now simply doesn't exist. They can't afford to have anybody injured. Campbell backs up at 2 spots, Clapp starts at 1, and he's the number 2 guy at another spot. Where's that happen in the SEC? So that's a major concern. Closing practice, I'm not a fan of it, never have been. That said, given the off-the-field issues that are taking place, I think that has as much to do with it as hiding what Matt Canada is trying to do. Mm-hmm. And Orgeron has never been that way as a coach anywhere he's been. I found it very interesting that they took this approach because from what I'm hearing, there's more to come in terms of guys to watch out for where their eligibility or ability to stay with the team remains. I think there's more to come. And one of the reasons for that is the regime that preceded this, and not to knock Les Miles, but they were a lot more permissive and a lot more loose with what took place.
Sure.
And forgiving and redeeming and everything else. I could name names, but we don't need to get into that again. I think things are a lot more strict these days. I see where they're number 12 in the preseason poll amongst the coaches. I got asked on radio a couple of times already what I thought about that. I think it's a little high. Frankly, I think they're more like a 17 to 20 team, probably closer to 20, and that's still good. But to have them ahead of Florida, ahead of Georgia, ahead of Tennessee, that's pretty tall timber. Yeah. And oh, by the way, there's only one SEC team in the top 10.
Yes, that's amazing. Alabama. Yeah, it is. Willie Allen, with it, Seth Stewart, Andy Dodge, all gone from the program now. And of course, now you add Tuhuma to that list.
Yeah, that's a lot. One's one's this, two's that. Now we're to 5, so it's that's a big number. But look, you got plenty of guys on scholarship. You're going to end up giving guys a chance to play that maybe wouldn't have gotten a chance to play, but you've got guys in there who are obviously good enough to be recruited and to sign with LSU, and probably they beat out a number of schools along the way to get those guys. It may not be the ones you want to put on the field, but it's now going to be the guys you're going to have to put on the field. And you're talking about the close practices and what's going on with that. It's interesting to hear some of the speculation about what Matt Canada is going to do offensively. In spite of what you could be looking at with the offensive line, Canada's creative schemes may be able to do enough to offset all of that and just and let Darius Geis touch the ball as many times as he can possibly touch it from as many formations and as many different positions as he can possibly touch it.
Right. Kenny, what are you hearing about moving 5-star safety Jacoby Stevens to wide receiver?
Well, again, I think that's an indication of their wide receiver position. DJ Chark and Gage are both guys I think you can count on. Chark took on a huge role after Miles and Cameron departed, and Gage, who was invisible, got a chance to play and showed that he had some ability. Beyond that, there are questions. I think the true freshman, Racey McMath, will have a chance to get on the field and contribute. He's very impressive, and having done high school games and done his game several times, really like him a lot. I think moving a guy like that is twofold. Number one, LSU secondary always has depth. They always have players. Two, their wide receiver position doesn't. Three, they plan to throw the ball a little bit more. No doubt Darius Geis is going to be the focus, and he should be. But you're not going to win consistently against the best teams if you can't throw it and throw it consistently and throw it 35 times a game. If you got 70 to 80 snaps in a game, you got to have balance, and you have to be able to make the short throws. Danny Etling has been pretty good in the short game, not so good in the deep game. We hear that injuries contribute to that. I'm not sure how good he is. I think we're about to find out with this offense, which is going to give him every opportunity. I guess the bigger question for me is just how good is LSU on offense? I think they're average at quarterback. Offensive line, at this point, you'd have to say average. Wide receiver position, average. Tight end positions had a lot of depth over the years. Maybe not so much now, although I like Foster Moreau. The only place I'd say they're above average is Darius Geis. Darrell Williams has lost weight. He's solid. Nick Brissett coming off of injury. I'm not sure that running back's as great as it was. I mean, last year, come on. Fournette's not playing. You got Darius Geis. Are you kidding me? Yeah. So I'm just not sure how good they are on offense. I don't see them being overwhelming, so scheme will have to carry the day.
What's the old coach cliche? Want to get the best 22 guys on the field?
Right.
That could well be what this is all about,
Right.
finding a way to get the best 22 guys on the field. And you mentioned that you take position by position on offense. You're right. Outside of running back, they are probably average to slightly above average. As you're comparing them to what would be par for them around the SEC, okay? But obviously on defense, they've always recruited well to that side of the ball, and they've always had a lot of depth on that side of the ball. And if that's what it takes to find a way to get the best 22 on the field, then so be it.
The guy I thought they might move, and again, going back to doing high school games, is probably the fastest player in America, Dante Jackson. He's he's so fast, it's like he was shot out of a cannon. To watch him, how fast he gets from 0 to 30 is incredible. And to put the ball in his hands in any capacity or to have that threat on the wing offensively changes everything. And that's why I thought that maybe he'd be that guy, because they certainly have good enough corners to be able to play defensively.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised that Stevens was moved, considering he's coming in as a 5-star safety. He came to DBU. He really did shock me that he was the guy. Tough schedule. You can't get around that. Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, the SEC on the road. The open with BYU. Your thoughts?
Well, this is the price to pay for what happened last year, and the whole the whole Florida game scenario. Then now you've got 5 SEC road games, and they're true road games. It's not some neutral site thing or whatever. You've got to go play in 5 teams, home stadiums, and it is not going to be easy by any means. You hear some people out there saying, "Oh, LSU may go 3-5 in the SEC." Well, don't forget, Auburn's one of the teams that's coming here who happens to be ranked ahead of them at this point, or right there with them. So it's not going to be easy by any means. The one thing we've seen year in, year out over the last 15 years from LSU, no matter what they faced, other than the little blip last year against Wisconsin at Lambeau, they take care of business in the non-conference. Whatever they have faced, whether it was true road games, neutral site, you usually get a couple of cupcakes at home, whatever. If they're not 4-0 in the non-conference, honestly, I'd be surprised. I think they're still, with everything that they're dealing with, they're still better than BYU. But if you're talking about a 3-5 or a 4-4 in the SEC, now you're talking about 7-5, 8-4 overall.
Kenny?
Well, I certainly agree with that assessment. Auburn, by the way, is behind LSU in the poll, so they've got them behind them too, and they beat LSU last year, and so we know how that ended, and it ended a career for Les Miles in all likelihood as a head coach, because I don't think he's getting another job. But their schedule is very difficult, and you mentioned the 3 first teams that you mentioned on the road obviously indicate how difficult it is. Just stop right there. Tennessee at Neyland, Florida at the Swamp, and Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Ole Miss has got major problems. Mississippi State played a jump ball game with LSU in Baton Rouge last year, and they got a gifted quarterback and another gifted one behind him. So that's going to be difficult. And you mentioned Auburn at home will be tough. So, look, people keep asking me, and I know they don't want to hear it, but I say 8 wins would be expected. Solid. If they get 9, it's a really good season given the schedule, but people don't want to hear that.
Right.
Because they want to know that they have a chance to win the SEC and win the national championship. With this schedule, I don't see that.
Right. Guys, Tulane, second year of Coach Fritz. Lenny, your thoughts on this team this year? Obviously, some real question marks at quarterback. But again, second year in this system, so they should be better. The question is the talent overall better this year?
I think it is. I got a chance to watch a little bit of practice on Monday. Unlike LSU, they're at least opening the last half hour of their practice to the media. But yeah, Jonathan Banks, I would say that I think in college football, unless you're running some system where you've got a dominant defense like in Alabama or something like that, you've got to have a difference maker at quarterback to be successful in college football. And their best chance of that happening, I think, is Jonathan Banks. Saw a lot of freshmen getting a lot of opportunities out there on the field at some skill positions. So it's going to be interesting to see. The long way to go. You got longer camps now. The legislation in April. That's why we're talking about preseason camps already. There's no more 2-a-days in college football. Yet they've still got the same number of practice opportunities. So effectively, it moved the start of practice up a week. We've seen less and less of 2-a-days as we've gone, but everybody pretty much started at the beginning of this week. So it's 5 weeks of camp leading in to your season opener on Labor Day weekend, if that happens to be your case. But look, I think you're right. The continuity from year 2, all those guys who are back, who now have a year under Fritz's system, and that staff is back. And I think coaches will tell you, you keep your staff together for an entire year, that's huge. That's as important as the players being around your system as well.
866-3200 is the phone number. You'd like to get involved in tonight's program. Kenny, your thoughts on the Tulane Green Wave?
Willie Fritz is a good coach. He's a proven winner. I think he's brought in a system, frankly, that Tulane had to go one of 2 ways, either go to the spread or go to a running offense. I think to go with a pro system here, it's proven continuously you're not going to win that way. Bob Toledo tried it. Curtis Johnson tried it. Others have tried it previously. You're not going to get the kind of players you need to win there. I think he's recruiting more players to what he wants to do. That's important. I think their offensive line approach is to be a little bit leaner and a little bit meaner, and I think that's important. I think to have a quarterback that's more athletic is important. He's got to be able to make some throws, and they just couldn't do it last year when they called upon their quarterbacks to do so. And then, of course, recruiting wide receivers will not be easy. Listening to Willie Fritz speak, I'm struck by the fact that he gets it. What I mean by that is very simple. He was asked about, listen, the previous staff recruited almost exclusively locally. How'd that work out? Well, and Fritz said, because when you take 3s and 4s locally, you're not going to win with those guys. We need to be in a position where we can get the 1s, if not a lot of 2s, and have a chance to win with. We're not there yet because when we knock on those doors, they tell us, you're no good, and nobody goes to your games. He's right.
Right.
So he says we need to build this thing to a point where when we can go to the kid in New Orleans or in the Jefferson Parish or into the river parishes or into Plaquemines or anywhere else and tell a kid, we're 7-4 last year. We got a pretty good program and a pretty good league. We'd like you to come to this school, which is a top 40 school in the country, academically. Now you've got something to sell. And oh, by the way, a few people coming to see the games too. So I think he's got the horse before the cart. He understands that before you can get those local guys, you've got to go out and prove yourself. And secondly, don't take the cheese from the trap. Don't go out and sign a kid just because he's local. He's the 3rd or 4th type of guy you'd go recruit, hoping that you might get the other guy from that school, because it's not going to happen. And it's been proven time after time. So I'm all for recruiting the local kids, but do whatever you need to do to win, whether it's the Georgia kid, the Florida kid, the Texas kid, the Alabama kid, wherever they need to go to get that kid. I don't think the fans care where they come from as long as they win.
Right. 866-3200 is the phone number. Lenny, you guys do a lot of prep sports at CrestCitySports.com. Of course, Kenny with the radio show. What is Fritz making inroads with the high school coaches here in Louisiana? It was kind of hard coming in so late last year.
It seems that way. I mean, last year, basically, he signed 2 guys from New Orleans. It was, Cameron Jackal and Corey Dublin, the 2 offensive linemen from Shaw and Jesuit, respectively. And at least in the early commitments you're seeing for the class of 2018, and signing day will be a lot earlier this year now with the new rules in place. You can actually sign in late December as opposed to having to wait until February, which will be an interesting dynamic. It seems like he's getting some more guys here that are local. You get defensive lineman from De La Salle. He's gotten a player from St. Aug. He's gotten a couple of others from some of the surrounding areas as well. And Ken follows this, not the recruiting end, but certainly the talent on the high school end, understanding what where it lies. Intimately, but it seems like at least after being here a year, they've made some more inroads.
I believe that's true. It's going to take time, as I mentioned. I think what he said was blatantly true, and some people might look at that and say, man, you're hurting yourself saying that. No, he's not. He's being honest.
Sure.
The other thing that comes into play is finally, and I say finally, Tulane is dipping into the community to allow teams to play at their stadium. And to have De La Salle and St. Augustine playing at Yeoman Stadium. Oh, by the way, Lenny just mentioned they've got commitments from both of those schools, and that's not coincidental, by the way, as to how they ended up in the stadium. And they'll announce very soon, in all likelihood, it's going to happen, so I might as well say it, that Jesuit and Rummel will play at Yeoman Stadium as well. And that'll be a big draw. 2 schools that draw a lot of fans.
Absolutely.
And oh, by the way, they have a lot of players, typically speaking, in particular on the Rummel side, that are Division I type of players. Tulane can't really get those kids right now, but their goal is to be able to build up to get them. How do you do that? Get them on your campus, get them in your stadium, talk to them all the time, and most importantly, everybody talks about what's the best marketing tool? Winning. Right. You've got to go out and win.
Yes.
If you want to get anybody interested in your program, from a player to a fan to a sponsor to a coach, and oh, by the way, to a media person too.
Yeah.
Because our job is to cover everybody we possibly can and to parcel out that coverage fairly and appropriately. But ultimately, it's about what's the audience.
Yeah. Well, I've often said, much like with UNO and Mark Schlesinger, what they did with basketball this year, give us a reason to talk about you.
Absolutely.
Give us a reason. I want to talk about Tulane. Give me a reason to talk about Tulane, and winning solves everything.
Couldn't agree more.
No doubt about it. Let's head to the phone lines. 866-3200. Hal is in Westwego. Hal, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports.
Hey, you guys. First of all, I wish Tulane a lot of success. And Eric, thank you so much for having this program. I love watching the show, and I hope your guests enjoy being on your show because I think it's just tremendous. Well, the reason I'm calling, Eric, I think I've heard you talk about the possible issue with the New Orleans Saints medical staff, maybe like questioning whether or not there might be some problems there with recruiting and maybe not doing the right things to help the players heal so that they can get back into their playing at 100%. And if you wouldn't mind just touching that a little bit, I'd appreciate it.
I've talked about the fact that, again, they signed a sponsorship deal with Ochsner. Ochsner obviously is a great hospital here in the city. They've had some misdiagnosis, some guys that have not come back. It's been on both the Pelicans and Saints side. I've been a little bit critical of that. When I look back in the years with Tulane, they didn't seem to have those problems that we're seeing now. They just renamed the facility for Ochsner, and both these guys obviously cover the teams. Do you feel that there's a problem with the medical staff, Lenny, or has been a problem since they've taken over?
Well, first of all, I think I'd separate the Saints medical side with the marketing side. Right. That's just a coincidence that there's a sponsorship involved there. Now, if they need to go get something done and somebody's got to go in the hospital, then obviously that I'm sure that comes into play. But all that said, obviously over the years they've had maybe more injuries, longer term injuries than other teams, and maybe that's the case. And as much analysis as goes on, and with all the numbers in the National Football League, I promise you, if it is some kind of issue, it's probably been addressed along the way.
Kenny?
I think it's more pronounced with the Pelicans than the Saints. Look, some guys are just naturally injury prone. We mentioned the Ellerbys of the world. Some guys you draft, they had one draft, go back to like 13, 14, where they drafted 3 guys, a linebacker, Powell, a safety, Sinceri on it.
Yep.
They had injury problems
coming in.
Has nothing to do with the medical staff. They were just injury prone. I'm not qualified to tell you that there's a problem with the medical staff or with Ochsner by any stretch. I'm an Ochsner cancer survivor, and I had a great surgery, and I'm really pleased about that, frankly. But beyond that, when I look at the Pelicans, certainly the Quincy Pondexter case is the most perplexing of all. And people talk about Eric Gordon. Eric Gordon didn't want to play.
Right.
I mean, come on. So from the standpoint of getting in the way, I can understand the consternation when you have a substantial financial investment in an organization. I can understand the cause for pause, the consternation that people might have. Is one side, the marketing side, putting safety ahead of the football side? I mean, I can get that debate. I get it. But for me to comment on whether or not that's been a major impact or whether somebody has messed something up, unless you have firsthand knowledge, you can't possibly put that out there. And I know people do on a regular basis. It's fun to discuss, and we discuss it on our shows all the time. And everybody has a different opinion. But if you're going to have an opinion, it has to be educated. I don't feel like I have an educated opinion to be able to say the medical staff is the reason that a certain player didn't get back on the field earlier.
And by the way, Hal, thank you for the compliment, but the guests make the show. I'm just the point guard. Let's go to Brian in Metairie. Brian, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Brian. Okay, do we have Brian? Let's go to DJ in New Orleans East. DJ, welcome. Hey, DJ.
Hey, Eric.
How you doing, DJ?
Lenny and Ken also. Look, a question about a couple of players for the Saints. I understand Crowley has had a couple of decent, runs of late, and I wanted to find out what's his chance of breaking the top 4, cornerbacks. And also, could they comment on Muhammad and his chances of making the team? And I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you, DJ. Lenny?
Well, I think you've all of a sudden got some depth at cornerback, and that was as a result of all of the injuries that you had last year and basically trial by fire with so many guys. The DJ mentioned Crawley. You mentioned Sterling Moore earlier. You've got some of these guys who would have probably never seen the field except maybe in a dime situation or something like that. But on an every down basis, guys you would not have seen out there. That with all of the injuries that you had last year at the cornerback position, all of a sudden got thrown out there and got a chance to play. And look, they were inconsistent, okay? Had they been better, they probably would have been out there to begin with. Or if not in New Orleans, they would have been somewhere else. So, but just getting that experience is not something that you can replicate. You do, and that's one of the things we talk about with preseason camp. You have all the practices you want, but you got to go out there and play in the games and get that experience in the games.
Well, if anything, that was the best thing that came out of last season, that a lot of guys got a lot of playing time that you hope now going into year 2, those guys are going to be able to develop. Crowley Muhammad, your thoughts?
Yeah, Crawley is a guy. Listen, here's what I tell people all the time. I mentioned that the training camp thing gets overblown and overrated, but you have to have something to talk about, right?
Sure.
So there are some things that do matter, though. And here's what I've advised people over the years. And Sean Payton certainly fits this mold, but it was also true of Jim Mora when he was the coach, and even dating back to Dick Nolan, which was the first coach I covered training camp with. If you ask a question, you being a media member, to elicit a response about a player, you'll get a response of some sort. Sometimes very, very complimentary, sometimes down the middle, sometimes dodging the question, read between the lines. But when the coach invokes a name on his own without anybody asking him about it, he's telling you something.
Right.
He's done that with Crawley a couple of times here in camp in recent days. The question wasn't asked. Read the transcripts that are put out every day about, and he's brought his name up more than once without involuntary fashion. So that tells me the coach likes what he's seeing. What does he like about him? Well, he got a lot of experience, as Lenny said last year. But more than that, he's a long, lengthy guy. And anybody that can find a cover guy that's got some length to him, again, it makes a huge difference. Those guys are hard to find. They tried to find them, and they oftentimes fail miserably. Baptiste was the most recent example of that. Everybody says, oh, I want the bigger corner. No, I just want the one that can play.
Yeah.
I don't care if he's 5'9" or if he's 6'3".
We've seen that experiment already.
And with regard to Muhammad, he's got a shot. It's a domino effect because of the loss of Fairley. Because Cam Jordan will play wherever the matchup dictates. He'll move inside at times. That creates a spot outside. Hendrickson has a shot as well. I think one of those two, Hendrickson or Muhammad, sticks. I think they'll try to hide one if they have to on the practice squad, although they might not clear waivers.
Yeah. Guys, I want to shift to Pelicans with the time that we have left. I think really an under-the-radar signing, but a really great signing for this team. Ian Clark signs with the Pelicans, $1.6 million one-year deal. He was a guy that was maybe overshadowed by the stars in Golden State. The guy can flat out shoot. You add that to Rajon Rondo, who they got for $3 million this year. And again, the last two signings, look like pretty decent signings for this team.
Yeah, and the Clark signing is kind of baffling in that was the price he went for.
Yeah,
I mean,
me
you
too.
see some indications like some people felt like he could have gone for 3-4 times, 5 times that amount somewhere.
The kind of money they're giving out right now.
But it's all dictated by the market, and a lot of times it's dictated by the market early on, and then those dollars get spent, and then what's left on the table at that point.
Nice player. I wouldn't get too crazy about him. I mean, he's a guy that's averaged 4 or 5 points a game in his career for 5 years. Last year, averaged 6 a game, shot 37% from 3. Yes, he can shoot the long ball, and that's a desperate need for this basketball team. The price is right, so I like the signing. And from the standpoint of what he can do here, I think he looked at the marketplace. I think he was skittish about what was out there, what was left, and he saw an opportunity to play here.
Yes.
Let's face it, where he wasn't going to see the floor much at all. Here he's going to have that opportunity if he's good enough. Darius Miller's an interesting case, too, to bring him back after the experience he gained abroad.
And to pay him as much as they did,
pay him as much as they did. They think he can score the basketball and shoot it, and we all know that that's something they need desperately.
What are your thoughts on the Rondo signing?
Mixed bag. I think they're better because of it, but he's a descending player.
Yes.
He's shot it better in recent years, but he doesn't shoot it a whole lot from distance, and that's why he shot it better. So measure that with a grain of salt. From the standpoint of what he can do, he does guard on the ball well. That helps defensively. Holiday can guard on the ball too. It gives you another ball handler. When they're both on the floor at the same time, gives you an opportunity to create, penetrate, and dish. So, listen, it improves the team in the short term. They're on a one-year deal, let's face it.
No doubt.
Cousins, Rondo, the coach, the general manager, it's a one-year deal.
No doubt. About 15 seconds. Your thoughts on Rondo?
Rondo, it was interesting to me to hear all the talk about how everybody thinks Rondo and Holiday can play well together. I'm not totally convinced of that. And that Cousins, who had some issues with Rondo in Sacramento, was one of the guys that was really making the sales pitch.
Yes. Guys, thanks so much for being with us. Lenny Vangilder, Kenny Trahan, CrescentCitySports.com. Put it on your favorites, make it your homepage, and of course you'll be checking out all the great writers there as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE at 10 p.m. Also on Pelican Sports Television at 9 p.m. We're on the Cox Cable tier as well. 10 o'clock on Thursdays, 2 a.m. on Saturday mornings. Catch me on the radio, 990 a.m. WGSO. That's 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. weekdays. You can do that. Download the TuneIn Radio app. Take it with you anywhere. Also, you can check out the show on ericasher.com, download the podcast, or check out all the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports at ericasher.com as well. Again, special thanks to Ken Trahan and Lenny Vangilder, and also to the WLE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Trey Lopez, Christian Mader, and also my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.